Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back for another video. In today's video, I want to talk about the great debasement of 2025 and how you can profit off of it. But before we dive on in, I have one request or a few requests for you. Could you please, for the sake of this channel, smash up that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, turn on the notification button. I am going to be making content like this every day for the foreseeable future. And leave a comment in the comment section for the algorithm. And just a reminder, we have member-only live streams every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, United States. But okay, everything is out of the way. Let's go ahead and dive on into this, the great debasement of 2025 and how you can profit off of it. So during my live stream yesterday on TikTok, I was only live on TikTok, I took a look at the M2 money supply chart, and I'm going to show that here right now. And it was really fascinating to me just looking at it and looking at it from the point where that chart begins, which I believe is about 10 years ago. And you're going to see it's just steadily going up in a straight line until 2020, where it just pretty much almost goes vertical. And then we had a bit of a peak in 2022, and M2 has been going down, and now we're starting to creep just a little bit back up. And I was really fascinated looking at this chart and just thinking through some things in terms of what does debasement look like. I mean, first of all, what is debasement? I mean, the dictionary definition would give you something along the lines of lowering the quality of a certain product. And so how do we lower the quality of the US dollar? We lower it by printing excessive dollars, by quantitative easing, by creating an environment where funny money thrives with low interest rates. That is the great debasement. There'd be all sorts of elements like that, but primarily it would be the printing of money. And so I was thinking so much when I saw this chart here about just so many things. And there's three key dates that really, no, there's four key dates that I just want to throw out and just give you a little bit of a picture of how we got here and where we're going. And it's simply, all right, date number one, 1913, the creation of the Federal Reserve. The economy, the general economy, was a lot more stable. I mean, within 2 decades, we had the Great Depression, and we entered into this new territory where we started to have some swings. The swings weren't as violent, and swings back then were a lot more stable than they are now. But 1913 was a key year. 1971, the removing of the US dollar, depegging it from gold, creating what we now call fiat currencies. That was a significant year. And then swings got a little bit more violent. And then 2008, the 2008 Great Financial Crisis, the introduction of quantitative easing, the propping up of the economy by the Federal Reserve in ways that we've never seen before. And then 2020 would be the fourth date. 2020, you see it on this chart. You see how significant of a date that was. That was great debasement number one, with the COVID crash, with that massive spike in M2 money supply. And now what I would like to show you, I want to put it right under the M2 money supply chart, is the Dow Jones Industrial Average since about the same time period as what we would see with the M2 money supply chart. And what do you see? You see a steady incline, really an unprecedented incline. It's just up only. For the last 15 years, it's pretty much just up only until the COVID crash. And then you see a new level of aggression when it comes to the increase of the Dow Jones stocks. And not just the Dow Jones. I could show you the S&P 500. I could show you the NASDAQ. And we have this more aggressive up only that has formed. And then around the time that M2 money supply peaked was around the time that, at least we hit that first peak in 2022, late 2021 in the stock market. And so now we're still putting in highs because the US dollar is still a debased cryptocurrency. There is still inflation, and inflation is still high, and inflation is still higher than what they're willing to communicate because, $100 worth of groceries in 2022 is now about that. The equivalent is now about $300 to $400. I mean, there's plenty of evidence showing that. So our currency is getting debased, but in terms of money supply is just now starting to increase. So where are we now, essentially? I would say that those 4 dates that I gave you introduced significant changes. And 2020 has now introduced a significant change in how global banks will operate. And what we saw in 2020 is at the signs of weakness, at the signs of recession, it's not what will happen necessarily, it's what has to happen in order to keep this fragile global economy that we have propped up. We are in new territory. And so we had it in 2020, going into 2021, in a level of debasement of not just the US dollar, but of currencies around the world that's really unprecedented. And that introduced a new swing to where we've seen the DXY go to levels that we haven't seen this century. And a new swing where we've seen inflation go to levels that we have not seen since the late 70s, early 80s. This is the new normal. And the way that we combat that is by doing what the Federal Reserve has done. They aggressively raised rates. It was multiple months of 50 basis point increases and 75 basis point increases. And then so we bring down inflation and try not to crash the economy too hard. But then we're starting to see weakness in the economy. We're starting to see unemployment rise. Just yesterday, we saw a shocking increase in unemployment in the UK. We're seeing sentiment in Germany has really plummeted, and we're seeing signs of a weakening economy. And what happens next, in my opinion, is that things get worse and worse. You know, the meme with the dog sitting in the burning house saying, "This is fine." Things get worse and worse until it starts to collapse. Not that it does collapse, but it starts to collapse. And then what happens after that? The great debasement of 2025, to where once again, we see this Dow Jones chart, which is still on the screen. We see another aggressive leg up in the Dow Jones. And I want to even inform you that this might sound a little bit different than what you've heard from me before, because I have made reference to the idea that I think 2025, the recession that we would enter into, would be worse than 2008. And I want to tell you, hey, good news, sort of. I don't think that anymore. I actually do think that they still have a few bullets left in the chamber, in that for the 2020s at least, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay in the sense of not total epic collapse. We'll see about the 2030s. I do wonder if they have a lot more bullets left in the chamber, but it's just going to get a lot more difficult for the lower class or financially illiterate people, those who just hold dollars and pay rent, and don't have any assets. It's going to continue to get more difficult for those people to survive. But for those of you watching this video, you can position yourself very well to a point where you're not one of those people. And you have time still. And so what are you going to buy? Not financial advice. Obviously, Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a hedge against not inflation, but against debasement. And gold, I know it's sacrilege for a Bitcoin person to be talking about gold. I am a believer in gold. Real estate, personally for me, I want double-digit acres. I want to grow my own food. I want animals. I want a homestead. I want to get there. And things that will continue to retain their value over the time of these great periods of debasement. Debasement is here to stay. until the collapse. That's all I have for today. Have a good one. Peace.